This is not a fish, it's a color choice. If you think the salmon on your plate is naturally pink, you've fallen for one of the most expensive optical illusions in the world. In reality, the fish you're about to eat is gray, a dull, sickly, concrete gray. The Atlantic salmon you buy at the store doesn't exist in nature. It's an industrial product grown in cages so cramped that the fish literally rot while they're still swimming. They are so riddled with parasites and chemicals that if you saw the water they live in, you'd never touch seafood again. But the billion-dollar salmon industry has a secret weapon to make you ignore the filth: the SalmoFan. Farmers literally pick a number from this palette, just like you pick a shade of pink for your bedroom walls, and then they pump the fish full of synthetic dyes to achieve that exact color. Without these chemicals, nobody would buy this fish. It would look like what it actually is: a sick, captive animal. Today, we are diving into the toxic world of industrial fish farming. We will expose why salmon is the most toxic food in the world, how the wild-caught label is being used to scam you, and the disgusting truth about the zombies swimming in our oceans. Welcome to the color scam. To understand how you are being scammed, you have to look past the beautiful pink fillet and see the animal it came from. In the wild, salmon are true athletes of the ocean. They swim thousands of miles through freezing, oxygen-rich waters. Their pink or deep red color comes from their natural diet of shrimp, krill, and small crustaceans. These creatures contain a natural antioxidant called astaxanthin, which the salmon's body absorbs and stores in its muscles. This color is a biological badge of health, strength, and survival. But the salmon you are eating never saw a shrimp. It never swam a mile in the open ocean. 90% of the Atlantic salmon sold globally is raised in sea cages, massive underwater pens anchored in coastal waters. In these pens, up to 2 million fish are packed into a space so small they can barely move. They live in a thick soup of their own waste, uneaten feed, and chemicals. Because they are not eating their natural diet, their flesh stays a pale, unappetizing gray. And the industry knows that no consumer will pay $20 a pound for gray fish. This is where the chemistry begins. The industry uses a synthetic version of astaxanthin, often derived from petroleum or genetically modified yeast. It is the most expensive component of the fish's feed, accounting for nearly 20% of the total production cost. But it's a necessary investment for the illusion. Major chemical companies like DSM have created the SalmoFan, a standardized color scale that looks exactly like the paint swatches you find at a hardware store. Farmers use this fan to decide which shade of pink their fish will be. If the market wants a deeper red, they simply increase the chemical dosage in the pellets. It is a literal paint job. If a farmer stopped adding these dyes to the feed, the salmon would look like a muddy, gray piece of trout. You aren't paying for the quality of the meat, you are paying for the quality of the dye. And while the industry claims this synthetic astaxanthin is nature-identical, it is a far cry from the potent antioxidants found in wild crustaceans. But the color is just a mask for something much darker. Because these sea cages are so overcrowded, they have become a biological disaster. They are the perfect breeding ground for sea lice, parasitic crustaceans that attach themselves to the salmon and eat their skin, mucus, and blood while the fish is still alive. In the industrial farms of Norway, Chile, and Scotland, these infestations are so catastrophic that the fish are nicknamed zombies. Their faces are often eaten away to the bone, their fins are shredded, and their bodies are covered in raw, open sores. To fight this, the industry has turned to chemical warfare. They douse the cages in neurotoxic pesticides like azomethylphos and deltamethrin. The fish swim in this poison, absorbing it through their skin and gills. These chemicals don't just stay in the cage, they leak into the surrounding ocean, killing local lobster and shrimp populations and devastating the local ecosystem. The nutritional profile of this fish is equally alarming. You are told to eat salmon because it's heart-healthy and rich in omega-3 fatty acids. This is true for wild salmon. But farmed salmon is essentially a different species. Because they don't move and are fed a high-fat diet of processed pellets, farmed salmon are functionally obese. If you look at a fillet of farmed salmon, you will see thick, wide bands of white fat. This is not healthy fat. This is where the fish stores its toxins. Because farmed salmon are so fatty, they accumulate high levels of persistent organic pollutants, or POPs. Studies have found that farmed salmon can contain 10 times more cancer-causing PCBs and dioxins than their wild counterparts. You think you are eating a health food, but you are actually consuming a chemical cocktail stored in animal lard. In fact, some environmental scientists have labeled farmed salmon the most toxic food in the world. The deception continues at the supermarket shelf. The industry knows that farmed has a bad reputation, so they have become masters of greenwashing. They use labels like naturally raised, sustainable, or Atlantic salmon, a name that sounds like a wild origin but is actually just the name of the most common farmed species. Even the wild-caught label is often a lie. Fraud in the seafood industry is rampant. DNA testing has repeatedly shown that up to 30% of the fish sold in restaurants and grocery stores is mislabeled. High-priced wild king salmon is frequently replaced with cheap, dyed, farmed fish. You are paying a premium price for a product born in a cage and colored in a lab. This is a war on your senses. The industry has spent decades normalizing the bland, buttery taste and the artificial pink glow of industrial fish. They want you to forget what real food looks like. They have lobbied governments to keep labeling laws vague and have fought against mandatory disclosures of the chemicals used in their baths. They want you to see the perfect, shrink-wrapped fillet under the bright supermarket lights, not the zombies rotting in the Norwegian fjords. They rely on your ignorance to maintain their $16 billion empire. So, how do you fight back? First, stop trusting the color. If a fillet looks like a neon orange highlighter, it's a lab-created product. Real wild salmon has a color that varies based on the season and the individual fish's diet. Second, look at the fat lines. Real wild salmon is lean. The white lines of fat should be thin and almost invisible. If the fat bands are thick and wide, it's a captive, obese fish. Third, check the price and the source. If wild-caught salmon is on sale for a price that seems too good to be true, it probably is. True wild salmon is a seasonal, precious resource, and its price reflects that. Buy from transparent sources. Look for third-party certifications like the Marine Stewardship Council, and whenever possible, buy from small-scale Alaskan or Pacific fisheries that still respect the natural cycle of the ocean. The next time you stand at the fish counter, remember the SalmoFan. Remember that the pink you see is a carefully calculated marketing decision designed to hide the gray reality of industrial farming. You are not just a consumer, you are a participant in a global experiment. It's time to stop swallowing the lie. This is consumed. We have exposed the chocolate slavery and the olive oil mafia. But the corruption in your grocery store goes even deeper. Next week, we go into the fields to find out why your organic chicken is actually a chemical experiment. Subscribe and read the label.